And we're back. I'm Chris Spinner, and you are here with me in the Wish House, your place for great conversation, inspiration, and what I like to call ordinary enlightenment, delivered with some Chrislosophy and lots of love. It's still story time here as I continue with my series, 1,000 Miles, my personal story about my son Anthony and our journey with autism. I love to share my personal story, how autism affected my life and how my life has affected autism. I'm intending to give hope to others who may just be starting out in this autism journey. I hope that my story will inspire you to feel more empowered inside for whatever struggles are in your life. My story can be a reminder that whatever rainstorms you're in, you can find some truth to power in my story. So we will continue. Anthony is now 3 years old. And after 18 months of searching for the right intervention, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and ushered in a whole new world. ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis. Once I discovered it, I knew that this was going to be the game changer. It was as if a ray of sunshine had broken through the worst storm clouds. That is what Laura's coming into our life was like. She was kind, caring, understanding, yet firm about her work with us, her work with Anthony. On the first day, she simply explained that the first lessons would be to show Anthony how to attend to work. He would sit at a work table. I had set up in his room a small plastic child's table with chairs. The first drill would be, look at me. Anthony was to sit in the chair across from Laura. She would say, look at me, and he was supposed to look, and for that, he would gain a little reward. She explained that soon after that, they would proceed to come here. Anthony would not be sitting in the chair, and Laura would say, come here. And when he did, she would say, great job, go play. And he could go and play with his little toys. These drills would be run over and over until he mastered them. These were the basics. He needed these to set him up for the work that was coming up ahead. Well, this seemed easy and quick enough. Anthony was a wiry kid, and by this time he was very active. It was hard to get him to attend to things, but I really thought with her calm demeanor, this was going to be a cinch. Well, on the first day, Anthony resisted. Actually, resisted sounds kind of neat and tidy. Anthony did everything but look at me. He threw himself on the floor repeatedly. He screamed, he cried, he ran around, he fell off the chair. And I stayed outside the door, periodically opening it to a crack, ever so slowly to see in. While Laura just kept repeating the command, never giving in, repeating, no, look at me, every time he didn't. Her voice was almost robotic. And I was shaking, crying, almost hyperventilating in the hall. What kind of a mother am I, allowing this to go on for almost an hour? Finally, Laura comes out of the room. She was as happy as could be. I began apologizing profusely for Anthony's behavior. I began rationalizing why he might not have been so receptive, but she stopped me in my tracks. And I remember she said the most amazing thing. And at the time, it struck me so oddly. But for some reason, it took a hold of me. And I was instantly in a believing state. She said that Anthony was a resistor. And that was good. Because by and large, kids who resisted show great potential. And I believed her. I don't know why, but I believed her. She said she would come back tomorrow. She gave me a list of supplies, shapes orders, blocks, specific toys, and off I went to buy what we needed for what I believed was the first real steps in the right direction. Laura came every day for a few hours. We carved a peephole in the bedroom door and covered it with a cute little scarecrow door plaque so that I could move it and peek in to see Anthony's progress. That was in lieu of a two-way mirror or a two-way window. And soon he went from look at me to come here to do this. And in about 10 days, Anthony could identify basic body parts, pointing to his and Laura's with an instruction such as, touch your head, and he would touch his head. Touch my head, he would reach across the table and tap on Laura's head. I was literally watching a miracle unfold before my eyes. I started sitting in on sessions, and Laura taught me what to do. And I realized if I wanted this to work, I had to teach in the hours Laura wasn't there. I was consumed. I was obsessed. And the more progress I saw, the more I threw myself into it. We were headed toward mid-August now, and Anthony was aging out of the preschool services. He would qualify for the next level. And I wanted that to be a full-time ABA program in our home. Laura would not be able to continue with us as she was employed for the preschool intervention. I called an emergency meeting of the school district and our team to plead my case that Anthony had progressed more in just this time, less than 2 months, than any other program put together. I was surprised at how tough a fight that was. The school district wanted him to go back and attend a school, but I held firm. And in the end, Anthony was signed up for a full-time, in-home ABA program. Laura helped us choose the best provider, and I was about the business of changing my son's life. My husband went out the day that the new team arrived. Doorbell at 9 sharp. A few therapists and team leaders. I felt as if I were running my own cottage industry. They explained that each day the therapists would come to work with Anthony. They were college students trained in ABA practices and supervised by Holly, our head teacher. Holly, our ray of light number 2. Holly would come once a week to work with Anthony and then conduct a weekly meeting for the entire team to note progress, to discuss what wasn't working, and to add more drills. I was energized. There was also a leader, Mindy, who would come twice a month to see how the program was going and make sure everything was being carried out correctly. And at the helm was Mary Ellen, the director of the entire program. I loved the layering of professionals. It felt like I was in great hands. The first meeting lasted over 2 hours. They chatted about Anthony's background, looked over Laura's notes, and planned Anthony's course. Often they talked amongst themselves, and I was simply the observer. And happy for it. It felt like I popped the bubble. They were plotting and writing at a feverish pace. They were organizing picture cards, and they were giving me lists of pictures to cut out of magazines and mount on index cards, which, as an aside, is always so funny to me because now, 30 years later, you can purchase these picture cards. But you have to remember, this was almost 30 years ago, and autism was not in the mainstream. Interventions were not in the mainstream. If you were a mom, it was like you were belonging to a secret society. So I made my list of pictures to cut and mount. Anthony, they said, would be identifying and developing language as this year progressed. It was surreal to think about this. I remember at one point, Holly was explaining how Anthony would be able to classify vehicles. I remember she said that word, vehicles. And the word sounded so foreign compared to what I thought Anthony was capable of doing. I remember asking her, was almost sheepishly, if Anthony would really be able to know what vehicles were. And I remember her laughing and she assured me it was going to happen. And once again, I believed a total stranger. I wasn't sure how it was going to happen, but in those 2 hours, I came to believe that if Holly said it, then I was sure it would occur. But running concurrently with the joy I was feeling, the stress of it all was continuing to wreak havoc in our day-to-day life. My husband wasn't all that happy about this therapy. Although he could see the progress, he wasn't as enthused as I was. I think he just wanted Anthony to be okay. That was it. Plain and simple. But isn't that all what we want, for our children to just be okay? He didn't like watching the therapy. It sure can hold the mirror of the disability up to your eyes, and it can affect you in ways that you never think it can. But I was convinced, and because of that, and the hope that Anthony's life was absolutely going to get better, he jumped on board and seemed okay with it. But the cracks were getting bigger. And I, consumed with Anthony, didn't have the time, the willingness, or the patience to address it. But something bigger was happening. And at the beginning of this road of what I thought would be recovery for Anthony, I was unknowingly taking the first steps on the road to recovering myself. Little did I know, or did I know and simply pushed it back further because I just couldn't take managing one more thing. That by the new year, new me would actually be a new identity I had never planned for myself. Single mom. It's amazing to me still the way life moves. The things we want, the things we intend, the things we dream about. If you open your mind and surrender to what you can't control with a blind faith, you end up getting what you don't even know you need. See, surrendering with blind faith isn't giving up. It's a shaking your head in disbelief, sometimes crying the many tears, mourning the end of your dreams, but taking the road before you. Or perhaps it's taking the fork in the road that you planned not to take, but you take it anyway, knowing on some level that what's ahead for you is for your higher good. And I did that. And I don't even think I knew I was consciously doing that. Maybe my higher self was directing me. I don't know. But what I do know is that I didn't have much time to dwell in what didn't or wasn't happening for me. Once I took that road less traveled, I just stayed on course. And after the first wave of sadness, madness, cryingness, loneliness that came with the breakup, I was good. I felt protected. I felt connected. I felt aligned. And I felt those things about me. I was responsible for protecting me. I was responsible for connecting me. I was responsible for aligning me. I was in charge of me. And it was for the first time in my life. The first time in my life I had ever felt like that and